It reminds me of an interaction that I had yesterday where, a guy came up to me during one of my workout classes that I was hosting. And, I went to give him one of my business cards, during the middle of the workout. And I didn't have a card, but he came up to me after the workout and said, "Hey, you were really aggressive to me when you were trying to hand me the business card before." And I was like, "Dude, I was not aggressive. I don't know what you're talking about." But his mind
Eh,
is positioned to see aggression because he doesn't have the right filter for how to interpret.
Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their lives, inviting us to reflect and grow together. Today, we're joined by John Borden, an author and ultra-marathon runner whose journey from a life of self-destruction to one of self-discovery is nothing short of inspiring. With a passion for mental health and a unique perspective on the power of psychedelics, John is here to share the wisdom he's uncovered along the way. Let's dive into John's story and explore the quote that has made a meaningful impact on his life. So what's your name and what you do?
How you doing, Wisdom? Yeah, good morning, man. My name is John Borden. I'm a personal trainer and psychedelic assisted mental health coach. I run a company called Get Psyched Fitness, where I aim to blend the physical, mental, and spiritual to help people make positive changes in their life.
Thank you for accepting my invitation to be on the podcast.
Yeah, of course, Wisdom. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for speaking with me.
What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, there's a bunch of ways that I could go with that, but the one that's most important to me is "Your mindset is your reality." It's the title of my book, and it was originally a text that I sent to my mother that came to me after about a month of reworking my understanding of myself, my place in the world, and how I could best use my talents to assist other people. So, that sentence, "Your mindset is your reality," is the truth as it was exposed to me. That regardless of what you go through in life, the things that happen to you don't matter. It's how you interpret what you've went through in your life and how you can use what you've gone through to be a better person from that point forward.
Yeah, okay. Your mindset is your reality. Now, I know you explained it, but I'm all for the stories. Can you explain
Mm.
the concept of your mindset is your reality with a story, if possible, a personal story? Yeah, any story, though, bro.
Well, I wrote a whole book that kind of leads up to that realization and really what that means. But, my whole life, I'd been somebody who blamed other people for my place in life, whether it was getting fired from my first job out of college or a girlfriend leaving me or living in a place that I wasn't happy with. And about 3 years ago, I really started to take control of my life. And one of the biggest events of that was an experience that I had with psilocybin mushrooms that I detail in my book. And when I went through that experience, it just showed me that the way I had been looking at the things that had happened to me earlier in life were the real problem. It was my interpretation that was the issue, not the events themselves. And so
Yeah.
once I learned that and understood that I could dictate how the things that happened to me earlier in life affected me and choose to make them a positive rather than a negative, that my life started to turn and I started to take control over my actions and work towards betterment for myself.
So you earlier on you did mention something very interesting, and that is the book. Writing the book led me to the realization of this quote. So I want you to expatiate on what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, so, it wasn't writing the book that led to me having that realization, but it was the events that are detailed in the book that kind of went one by one by one. I had 6 different experiences with psilocybin mushrooms that I detail in the book. And through each experience, I gained a little bit more insight into the way that my mind was keeping me trapped in old habits, old thought patterns, things that really limited my potential and kept me from being the person that I wanted to be. And once I was able to think about the events of my life and say, "Hey, you know what? It's not a bad thing that I got fired from my job," because that meant that I could have the ability to work in different fields and meet new people and gain inspiration that led me to make a major change in my life of coming to Florida, or not upset that a girlfriend of 5 years left me, because that gave me the freedom to be able to make a move when I wanted to make a move. And so just framing those things as a positive and not a negative
Yeah.
was really the key to me being free from what had happened to me earlier in life and no longer ruminating on what could have been, but rather just focusing on what is now and what can be
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. So from what you've said so far, and thanks for correcting what I said earlier on, that is the book is a documentation of the realizations you've had from all the stories and occurrences in your life. So you're like, oh yeah, I might as well just put this realization in a book, and boom, yeah, you had all the stories compiled together and the book, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I know that there is a before and after switch, which is there was a time before you realized this. There is a time after you realized this. Can you tell us what changed?
Yeah, man. Basically everything changed. The way I approached
Cool.
life on a regular basis in terms of my values, in terms of how I worked. I was doing jobs, I was in sales my whole life and really just chasing a dollar, chasing the validation that, promotion and prestige would provide, going out on the weekends, drinking every weekend, doing cocaine every weekend. And when I had
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
my realizations that are documented in the book, uh, it just allowed me to see what the real effects were of how I was operating and decide that that lifestyle was no longer right for me. So I rid myself of those habits, whether it was alcohol, drinking, chasing girls, so on and so forth, and found that the best thing I could do for myself and the best thing I could do for other people was to work on myself as hard as I can from a physical fitness standpoint, and then go into a field like personal training and mental health coaching where I can make an immediate impact for people. And so I went from somebody who, you know, uh, physical fitness had always been a part of my life, but not the part of my life. And now I'm to the point where I run ultra marathons and I compete in strongman competitions, and I'm going to be on the podium of a Spartan race soon. I
Wow.
know that. So, just trying to find any way I can to push myself forward and show people that, no matter what has happened to you, what habits you've built up to the point in your life where you're at now, that you have the power to change that and you have the power to go in a completely different path and one that really excites you. And that's the way that I live life right now, is in a way that really excites me and really makes me want to get up and work hard on a daily basis because I know that I'm doing something great for myself and great for other people around me.
Yeah. Just to step back on the quotes, right? Even though we're talking about your mind is your reality, we're just talking about how you approach, how you see things. In actual sense, right? What we see, maybe I've watched too much sci-fi movies, but what you see, right? I could actually make you think you see something by just affecting your perception, right? The electrical impulses that go into your eyes. And that is where some of these mental illness come from, where they see someone, they hear someone, hallucinations, someone talking to them, mentioning their name and all these things, right? None of these things are happening in real life, but to the person, it's as real can be. Everything is there because the mind is what makes sense of all the impulses that comes in. And sometimes the mind itself generates its own impulses. I give an example. A regular thing could have happened. Let's say you lost you lost your job, and I was like, oh, my life is terrible and all that, right? And this is the end. Whereas it's just your job you lost. It's not like, I mean, it's a big thing, but it's your job you lost. There are people who the bullets is just going through their hands, and they're questioning whether they will survive or bleed to death. And I mean, losing a job is a big thing, but it's not that big a deal. You get another job.
Yeah,
But
that's exactly it.
sometimes the mind overplays everything that it becomes, because you see people lose their jobs and they commit suicide, right?
Hmm.
And I know that the mind has a way to play. What will people say? People will say, people will laugh at me. Me that used to earn so and so amount, I will start looking for, I can't afford the lifestyle and all those things, so many things. And guess what? It leads us, it's pretty convincing. Some really drastic decisions that are not exactly good.
Hmm. And that's exactly it, man. When I had lost that job, It was something where I was working 60 hours a week for the last 4 years at a job that I excelled very strongly in. And so being there, devoting that much time and effort to something, it becomes a big part of who you believe that you are and how you show up in the world. And so losing that, you lose your identity. And for me, I thought, I'd get a new job very quickly, but, it kept stretching from 1 month to 2 months to 3 months. And, after getting denied from a few different jobs, I was suicidal. I was at that point where, I felt like there wasn't anything better for me there and that it would be in my best interest to just leave the world. And, thankfully I didn't take that step. And it was a couple years after that that I had the experience documented in the book, but I never really got over
Yeah.
it. I never really accepted responsibility for my own role in it and said, hey, you know what? This is my fault that I lost the job and not someone else taking it away from me. When
Yeah.
it's taken away from you, you feel a lack of control. But by accepting responsibility, I was able to gain back that control and realize that, like you're saying, it's just a job. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We have a way of playing things out. I've had instances where people they fail an exam and they commit suicide, right? Right. And I'm like, of course, passing an exam is good, but it's just an exam. If you fail an exam, you write it again. If you can't write it again, you move on with your life. There are other things you can do with your life other than writing an exam. But
Hmm.
people they make decisions, they do things, and it's because the mind, as you said, the mind is your reality. What you see, what you believe, everything, the things you hold, it's all there.
It reminds me of an interaction that I had yesterday where, a guy came up to me during one of my workout classes that I was hosting. And, I went to give him one of my business cards, during the middle of the workout. And I didn't have a card, but he came up to me after the workout and said, hey, you were really aggressive to me when you were trying to hand me the business card before. And I was like, dude, I was not aggressive. I don't know what you're talking about. But his mind
Eh,
is positioned to see aggression because he doesn't have the right filter for how to interpret the emotions that other people are displaying. So because he's on the defensive, he sees any act of, confidence, let's say, as aggression. And so, his reality is that it was aggression. But is it the reality?
it is the reality. And sometimes in the way we were saying that, oh, your reality, sometimes it's a bad thing. But sometimes same thing that the same occurrence, you can either make of it what you want to make it. So you can actually think that, oh, I could actually create my own reality and make what it is, right? So as much as that's creating your own reality could lead to, you making some terrible decisions. It could also lead to you making some really good and life changing decisions.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Most
because
definitely. Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, because when you lost the job, you actually lost the job. That's the way. That did happen. But there were two realities. There was one you're like, this is terrible. I've lost my source of income and all that. And then there's the other reality where you're like, wow, this is an opportunity to try something new. What should I do? Probably I should start a business or something of my own, right?
Yep, exactly, man. That really comes back to the heart of the quote, right? Is that if you choose to look at things from a positive lens, then the world will be positive.
Yeah,
We all have that choice, and no matter what it is that happens to us, if we're going to look at it pessimistically or optimistically. And by choosing the optimistic route the last 2.5 years since I had the experience dictated in the book, my life's been on a positive upward trajectory constantly. Doesn't matter if I lose a personal training client or if my house floods like it did last year during the storms here in Florida.
so sorry about that.
It's all come with positives because, if it wasn't for the flood, then my girlfriend wouldn't be living with me. If it wasn't for losing clients, then it wouldn't have freed up time in my day that I would have been training those clients to do other things that have led to positives coming into my life. And so, you can always choose to dwell on the positives or you can choose to dwell on the negatives. And regardless of
Yeah.
what your choice is, you're dictating your reality with that choice.
Yeah. And then there's the part where you think that you cannot make a choice. The funny thing is that trying not to make a choice is an active choice. There is no passive state. You're always active.
That's exactly it, man. So many of the times we get caught in this cycle of rumination, caught in this inaction state, and it leads to anxiety building up. It leads to us worrying about the worst possible outcomes coming. And if you just act, you just go for it, you're going to find out. And a lot more positives come from just acting than sitting on your ass and worrying about what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah, that's I think normally there's a depth of clarity that comes from being in the mud.
Hmm.
It's just different.
Yeah, man. You just have to look at what you can do to move yourself and forward and consistently act towards making that happen for yourself.
Your mind is your reality. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that with us. And thank you for writing the book.
Of course, wisdom. I look
Yeah.
forward to your reading it, and I look forward to your readers or your listeners, excuse me, getting a hold of it because it's something that I put a lot of myself into, and the people who have read it tell me that they really resonate and really gain strength from my words. So I'm so happy to share it with the world and share my story as openly as I can, through all the bad times and all the good times and how I turned those bad times into good times.
Yeah. Yeah. Stories. I think there's a thing about stories that universally human natures, we're all the same. The specifics of things could change, like, oh, you live in a house, you live in all this, but universally we all have the same thing, right? We control this the same emotion, the same vices and virtues that we that influences our decisions. They're all there. And so that's the thing about stories, because people can find themselves in someone else that's probably they're not even of the same country, not the same language, but they just connect. And like I feel like I see myself in it. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that wisdom.
yeah. Thank you so much, John. Thanks so much for making helping me make sense of the quote.
Of course, brother. I wish you the best. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with your listeners.
Yeah. Where can my listeners learn more about you and the book?
Yeah, so the best place to follow me is on Instagram. My Instagram is at Johnny B. It's JohnNniebe. And my book is available on Amazon. The title is Your Mindset is Your Reality. It's a purple book that if you search it
Yeah,
on Amazon,
it's
you'll
is it
be,
close to you? Is it like close
you
by?
know, yeah, let me go grab one.
Wow, I like the cover design.
Thank you,
Your
brother.
mindset's your reality. Thank you. Yeah, so you can't miss it. That's what the book looks like if you're watching on YouTube. Yeah,
Beautiful.
thank you so much.
Of course, wisdom.
Yeah, it's been an absolute delight chatting with you. You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.